Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday, May 12th, 2022 Webster Town Board Workshop. We actually have 4 agenda items tonight for presentations and discussion. But before we do that, we have a quick resolution here to set a public hearing. And it's kind of a time-sensitive thing, Charlie, because we have the New York State legislative process involved in that, so I'm going to just go with this. I'm going to make a motion of the Webster Town Board to schedule a public hearing on Thursday, June 2nd, 2022, to approve transfer of a portion of property currently in and designated as the Candlewood Park District into a new park district to be designated as the Bear Creek Circle Park District, with notice to be published in the Webster Herald's Wednesday, May 18th, 2022 edition. That's my motion.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Thank you.
And I just want to add, for those who may be hearing about this for the first time, it's something we've looked at least 2 different meetings.
Oh, we've already, and we've actually already had one public hearing on it
Right.
earlier in the year, right?
Yes.
This is on a specific bill, just for public record, okay? This is specifically now, we have a Senate bill and an Assembly bill. The Senate bill is 9176 and the Assembly bill is 10238.
Okay.
And the residents that live over there are well aware of this.
Yes, they are.
Boy, are they ever. So, our first item tonight, our town engineer, Mary Harrington, is doing a presentation on the town's MS4 annual report. And we're not going to jip you out of the 2 minutes because it starts at 5:32. You will get the appropriate time, Mary. So.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'm here today to present on the MS4 annual report. So I'm just gonna, I know I was here 2 weeks ago talking about the MS4. So I just wanted to refresh memories. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. As an MS4, the town is required to develop a stormwater management program that will reduce the amount of pollutants carried by stormwater during storm events to water bodies to the maximum extent practicable. The goal of the program is to improve water quality and recreational use of waterways, and this is something that the entire town has to comply with. Again, just refreshing that Monroe County is a member of the Stormwater Coalition, that Webster is a member of the Stormwater Coalition of Monroe County, and they support the town in efforts to execute this program. So as we heard last week, there are 6 minimum control measures, and this is the same way that the report is broken out. 1, public education; 2, public participation; 3, illicit discharge program; 4, construction stormwater management; 5, post-construction stormwater management; and 6, municipal pollution prevention program. I forgot to edit that out. I will correct that. But this is just a snippet of the public education. It's mostly done by the coalition just because they have a wider reach, and we all contribute financially to them so that they help us with these bigger programs. So construction site, public education, stormwater management information. They do household hazardous waste disposal, and we do host one at the highway garage every year. Illicit discharge detection and elimination, storm drain marking, and recycling, and other items. So some examples of this: construction site operator training. So this is a 4-hour training that's offered multiple times throughout the year. Contractors that are disturbing an acre or more are required to have someone on site who has received that training, and it's renewed every 3 years. There's displays. That's an example of an H2O billboard that's in the community. They go to public events and schools to educate the residents. They provide printed materials, and they also have a really nice display at the Museum and Science Center in Rochester, showing how different types of pavements react to stormwater, porous and permeable, and how the rain cycle goes. I don't know if anyone's seen it there, but it's, I think it's been there probably 4 or 5 years. So the second part, public participation. If anyone in town is interested in anything to do with the MS4 program, they're encouraged to contact the engineering department. We also encourage storm drain markings, and I notice them in a lot of our neighborhoods around town. The county offers rain barrel classes, and then there's the advertisements and videos of the H2O Hero campaign. Illicit discharges. In the town, there are 615 mapped outfalls. Last year, we inspected about 260 of them. Monroe County Soil and Water provided field training to, I think there was about 5 highway staff and myself and some interns last year. So there was about 8 to 10 of us from the town that all got trained by them, and they also loaned us a tablet that had an interactive inspection that you could take photos and add right into it. Construction stormwater management. This is a big portion of the effort on Webster's behalf. This year there were about 15 SWIPs reviewed, so that's the actual technical engineering report that analyzes how the stormwater changes of the development will affect the land, and then what they're going to do during construction to prevent any sediment and erosion issues. There were 11 of those filed with the New York State DEC. 4 of them weren't filed with the DEC because the town's threshold for a permit is 25,000 square feet. So that's something that we administratively review, but we don't actually file it to get a permit through the DEC. There were 22 active projects in town that were providing reports last year to us on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And 8 new stormwater features were constructed last year as a result of the development that was going on. 4 ponds, 3 bioretention, and 1 filtration system. And not all of those are being dedicated to the town. That's just an overall total of what was put in. And I also note that the engineering department issued about 15 notices of violation and 3 stop work orders last year. For post-construction management, the town did manage to inspect all of our ponds. The interns got out and again used the tablet provided by Monroe County to do that inspection, and then Highway is always constantly monitoring their ponds as well. And about 20 received maintenance last year. Other town maintenance, this is done by the Highway Department. Removal of log jams in creeks and streams, replacement of outlet structures, mowing, and reestablishing swales. And then I'll also note that there are 32 private ponds in town, and they are required to have a licensed engineer perform an inspection on an annual basis. The program in town is a little lacking, and so I'm trying to get my arms around that this year. And we're having a lot more success with getting contact information for these different private ponds. A lot of times it's not necessarily the business that's occupying the parcel, but it might be a land management company that actually goes and facilitates the inspection. And I was only handed down addresses to send letters to, so we're working on getting emails and phone numbers and contact names so that we can better get responses back when we request these things.
Mary, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to get it while you're on that slide. Does this include ponds that are people's property, like residential?
Only if they are a stormwater facility. So
Okay.
if it's like an old farm pond in the middle of a field, it's not really treating runoff, and it wasn't put in for that reason.
Thank you.
And then the last measure, municipal pollution prevention program. The highway folks are constantly street sweeping. I've seen them out a lot lately. And they estimate that they sweep over 800 miles of road. They perform culvert inspections. They do catch basin inspections and maintenance, over 300 a year. They maintain the right-of-way. They last year improved their stormwater system by replacing their oil water separator, and they do vehicle and fleet maintenance. So that is the overview, and I will provide the actual annual report to the board soon. But it looks like something you'd put through a typewriter, so it wasn't going to show very well up on the screen as a presentation. Are there any questions?
No, thank you.
Thanks.
A lot of information, thank you.
I think probably why there's not a lot of questions is was it 2 weeks ago that Pat and you were here
Yeah.
presenting very similar things?
I will not be back in 2 weeks to talk about stormwater, as far
Okay.
as I know.
But it is, no, thank you very much.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
So you get to bank 5 minutes for the next time you're here.
All right.
All right.
I'll try not to take it, but it's good to have.
And I think I might have been remiss on, we have two of our conservation board members in attendance tonight, Mike and Chuck. I think you were here for that presentation. Is that correct?
No,
See, I am remiss.
that was just a bonus for them.
That was just a bonus.
Yes.
Okay, they're here for
For the last
Josh
two, for the last two.
For the comprehensive plan, yeah.
never mind, Chuck and Mike, but we're glad you're here. Next up is Chief Kohlmeyer is here to kind of give us the update on something that started back really at the board level in I'll say January. Not to, before I hand the baton off, it's been a tough situation where the last couple months with the dissolving of the special police. And we did that on January 13th, and we said we would work with their leadership team to try to come up with what structural options are available that we can pursue that don't have, as I like to call it, statutory conflict. That's Brayton Connors. We did report on March 24th, or you did, Chief, to the board what we've been doing and what options are available. We said at that time we would come back soon. We didn't give an exact date. Is it safe to say, Chief, that today is the date we're coming back?
Yes, sir, it is.
Baton handed to you.
Thanks. Like we talked about, there was three primary options we were looking at. Two of those were paid. One was paid peace officer status. One was paid non-peace officer status, and the third one was a volunteer, really of unknown authority, because we're not sure how that works still to this date, actually. So the reason of the discussion tonight is to bring it to the public and to the board that based on the research we did on the two paid options that were available to us with a cost-benefit analysis, they don't seem like viable options for us to pursue, to have a paid public events group associated with a law enforcement function for the town. So I wanted to make sure the board was aware of that. We met with the special police group Tuesday night to have the conversation with the members that were able to attend that, to make sure that they were hearing that conversation directly from us first. Essentially what it does is it closes out any potential option of having the special police title move forward with the requirement in Town Law 158 that the title has to be compensated. There isn't a non-compensated capability with the special police title. So I know there's a lot of confusion over that on how the title existed for a number of years without that, but based on our research and legal analysis from outside perspective, that is a requirement for the position that it has to be compensated. So it's really up for the board here for discussion or any questions at this point.
What was their input in your meeting?
This one we just had now, or the
Yes.
ones leading up? So the one we just had, they're disappointed. I think that everybody wanted it to work so that they could maintain the services they're providing the town. So I think that there was definitely a level of disappointment for them. And this affects them not only in a professional sense, but a personal sense. They committed a lot of time to this effort in this town to provide the service. And it's unfortunate we couldn't come to a resolution that allowed that to continue.
You know, and
What about the volunteer, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, no, go ahead, John.
What was their feelings on the non-specific volunteer aspect of the three choices?
So I think we may get some involvement if we can make that work, but I don't think that was the goal of that group. I think they were
Right.
primarily interested in maintaining that peace officer status. So there still may be some involvement or opportunity moving forward, but I think the current discussion was disappointing for them to hear.
Are we going to venture further down that road with those that potentially may be interested in doing that on a volunteer basis?
If I can find the appropriate authority for a volunteer component to work with us, that is absolutely an option I want to have for the police department. So,
Okay.
And that'll be open to whoever we can get to fill the requirements that we identify for that position.
And I want to, what you just said, Chief, was in its simplicity, when you said if you could find a structure of volunteers to assist at events, you have been consistent with that. You've said that to Patty and myself. We've been involved in this since the beginning. You've been very consistent about that. It's just finding the structure that would support that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, from a standpoint of, Patty, you and I and Chief were there this past Tuesday night.
Yeah, and I've been involved in this, excuse me, because I am the liaison to the police department. And they were understandably very disappointed in the final decision on this. But I did tell them, and I want to tell the community, that our decision in no way diminishes our appreciation for what the special police have done for this town for decades. Unfortunately, things have changed, and when they were auxiliary police and the whole history of it, it has completely changed to what it is today. But I just want them to know that we appreciate everything that they've done for us.
And, like Chief had said, we just, it was the right thing to meet with them, to give that news on Tuesday, not having him hear it here tonight when the rest of, the citizens are hearing it. But it's still fresh from that perspective. I do think we're hopefully going to be working with the rank and file to see if there's an appropriate way to give them their due honor in the next, couple of months in some form or fashion. But I'd like to work with them to see what that is. I don't want to have us dictate what that is.
Yes, sir.
So, any other comments or questions? Okay. All right, I told you.
Walk in the door.
Are they here? Hey, our 6 o'clock slot starts at 5:50.
Absolutely.
All right.
Shuffle.
How's that over under, by the way?
Might want to give them a minute or two to settle.
Well, they do have some time on their side, so
Yes.
I mean, they can settle. They can, yeah. Thank you. So as they are settling in, and I'll have to see as they come in, are they like the three wise men? They came from the east, or they came from far away, or?
Syracuse and
Wise women.
There we are.
You guys come on up here.
That's a good point. You know, I said, I can.
We're all gonna sit up here.
Well, Art, as everybody settles in, I'll let you do introductions.
You know what, Supervisor? I'm going to introduce Ken Knudsen from BNL, and I will let you carry on the introductions from there. How's that?
All right.
Let's switch.
So this is a presentation by Barton and LaJudas and the New York State DEC Climate Smart Community and NYSERDA Cleaner, Greener Community Opportunities. Baton handed to you, Arthur.
Thank you, Supervisor. So as we work through this project, we always talk about the funding opportunities and grants, and it was a great time to have Ken and his team in. Sorry. So it was a great time to have Ken and his team in to talk about grants and opportunities that are out there, not only for the wastewater facility, but may actually extend a little bit further than that. There you go. We'll switch.
You need a bigger screen.
Better give the microphone back, Art.
No, we're good.
Got it, okay.
That's why I gave it to Ken earlier.
We had that in the 70s.
All right, thank you to the board for the opportunity to present tonight. I have a couple of, I guess, new faces to the town joining me this evening. I've got Jamie Burchard. She is a senior managing community planner within Barton and LaJudas' Sustainable Planning and Design Group, of which I'm the director of. And Jamie is a certified planner as well as a certified floodplain manager, which comes in handy with the town being a lakeshore community and many more in Monroe County. And then Jenny Lowenstein is a staff community planner, not a planner. There we go. That's on me, QAQC guy. Jenny joins us recently here from Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Commission, and has skill sets that are pretty focused in the Climate Smart Community Program, as well as NYSERDA's Clean Energy Community Program, and in that role has worked with many municipalities in the Genesee Finger Lakes region. So, a little different spin tonight. You know, last time we were here, we were presenting with Art and Rick on phase 2, opportunities of basically converting your wastewater treatment plant to a water resource recovery facility, or WRRF, and in doing so, using opportunities here to basically possibly pull in some revenue to your plant, as well as save on energy and reduce nutrients to the lake. And it's that reduction in nutrients that to date has primarily been the focus of the grant applications that have been submitted and which was awarded to the town for phase 1 in the form of the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act grant, or the WIA grant. So tonight, a little different presentation here, but it's focusing on the plant and co-funding opportunities and the money that's going to be making its way out there or is already out there under existing programs, be it through the consolidated funding application or WIA or other programs that may be coming out with all of this infrastructure money that's going to be coming to municipalities across, you know, through the federal budget. So real quick, I'm going to do an introduction here and then hand it off to Jenny and Jamie to speak to the Climate Smart Community Program and the CEC, the Clean Energy Communities. The CFA portal, consolidated funding application, is open. Those applications are due at the end of July, so the opportunity is, and the timing is good here to talk about two programs within that we think are suited for phase 2. And then just touch briefly on the WIA program again, which if things play as they have in the past, that would be released later this summer and due sometime in November, and then we'll look forward. So again, as a consultant in a municipality, you know, this is a puzzle. How do we get funding from all these different sources for our project? And each of these funding sources looks at different pieces and parts of your project and what the various drivers are, and they like working together. They like to co-fund projects that are beneficial to the community and the environment and all things municipal. So, you know, within all those programs under these different agencies, as I mentioned, you know, we've primarily been looking at water quality. Well, you know, you upgrade your plant, there's economic development opportunities with some of the program or some of the processes under phase 2. You're actively participating in climate action mitigation and adaptation through reduction of energy consumption with more efficient blowers and harvesting and reuse of methane to power your plant. So that's a program that Jenny and Jamie are going to speak to, and Jamie actually wears the hat of climate action specialist at Barton and Lejudas, which goes beyond sustainable planning. It reaches into water resources, transportation, solid waste, environmental. So she's basically playing this role with all of the disciplines that are within Barton and Lejudas. So again, the bottom line is your phase 2 has many drivers, and we think there's opportunity there to you know, look at each of these and tailor these applications so they are effective in possibly bringing additional co-funding to the project, you know, beyond what was anticipated through the WIA. So that said, the latest estimate for phase 2 is around 31 million. If we were to target strictly the WIA, there's been some changes in that would provide up to 7.8 million or up to a maximum of 25% grant of the total project cost, up to 5 million of which is the cap awarded in a single year, which I'll cover later on in this. So you're looking at a net project cost in the $23 million range. Again, the green areas highlight some of the major unit process modifications and additions that phase 2 will bring to your plant. The biggest energy efficiency improvement would fall into your aeration basins, optimizing diffusers, your valving, your instrumentation and controls, and especially the motors on your blowers, making those premium efficiency, which would reduce a lot of power and make that basically a smart system which functions on loading to your plant. This whole area here would be rework and additions to your anaerobic digesters to have more efficient reduction of waste solids that come off the phase 1 clarifiers and allow you to generate more methane gas, which could then be used to power dual fuel boilers that could then send heat to your plant and other things. And then finally, this facility out here would allow basically revenue streams to increase to the town in the form of septic receiving, leachate receiving, biosolids from other facilities, liquid solids from other facilities, organic waste, high-strength waste that may come from local industries. So again, you're looking to build a regional facility here that touches all these opportunities here that are going to impact your community and ultimately lead to a sustainable plant, cost savings, and basically allowing you to build a grant through cost savings in the areas of, you know, as a result of the revenue. And this goes back to the pro forma that we had put together, you know, to the best of our ability, where if you take a look at the investment in these solids handling facilities in particular, you know, depending on how much volume you're pulling in of the various waste streams, you know, you could be net positive after year 1. So, you know, that also has to be considered here on top of the actual capital grants that we may be helping you with and that you're going to pursue. So with that, I'll switch seats here with Jenny, because I think it's probably easier just to navigate
You want to give the mic?
yourself.
two different grant opportunities that are available to the town of Webster. The first is the Climate Smart Communities CFA grant, which is offered through the DEC. This grant will advances the town's ability to address climate change at a local level by looking at both mitigation implementation and adaptation implementation processes. There are two different flavors to this grant. There's the implementation category as well as the certification category. We recommend sticking with the implementation category. There's eligible implementation projects that must be greenhouse gas mitigation or climate change adaptation projects. And those are all outlined in the guidance document that the DEC put out. The minimum grant award is $50,000, while the maximum grant award is $2 million. The Climate Smart Communities grants are reimbursement based and require a 50% local match. The two things highlighted in green are what we suggest you focus on for this grant application: the food waste and organic processing and composting, and also the water resources recovery for the cogen units. The application for this is due July 29th at 4 p.m. Just as a note of interest. So right now, the town of Webster is not a climate smart community, and while that does not prohibit you from applying to this grant application, it does set your community up for success to receive funding through this CFA program. So in order to become registered as a climate smart community, there's two steps. The first is to pass the Climate Smart Communities Pledge as a municipal resolution, and the 10 pledge elements must be passed and adopted verbatim. And those 10 pledge elements are listed there. You need to build a climate smart community, inventory emissions, set goals and plan for climate action, decrease energy use, shift to clean, renewable energy, use climate smart materials management, implement climate smart land use, enhance community resilience to climate change, support a green innovation economy, inform and inspire the public, and engage in an involving process of climate action. And like I said, those need to be passed verbatim. And then once that resolution is passed and adopted, you complete this online registration form and upload the adopted resolution. And then that's pretty much it. Once your application is approved by the DEC, the town of Webster will be registered as a climate smart community, and you'll be put on this map. As a point of reference, there are 356 registered communities, and only 82 of them are certified as bronze and 8 certified as silver. So what that means is by passing this resolution, it does not hold you to it. It's just setting yourself up to start exploring these 10 pledge elements, and it's something you can do in the future, but it does not hold you to legally to be a climate smart community and get certified. The town of Brighton and the city of Rochester are both certified as at the bronze level. So next I'm going to talk about is the Clean Energy Communities program, and that's offered through NYSERDA. NYSERDA has developed a list of high impact action items that you can see on the screen that local governments can take to save energy, cut costs, and earn a designation. In order to receive grant funding, you need to complete 4 actions and become a clean energy community. And each high impact action has a point total that is associated with it, and you collect the points after you complete the actions, and the points you earn count towards unlocking additional access to grant funding. The 3 actions highlighted in green are kind of the setting the stage of how you would get designated first. And they're kind of the low-hanging fruit. They would not cost the community any money at all, and they're fairly simple to complete. It's passing the Unified Solar Permit, sending 1 code enforcement officer to the energy training, and then completing both benchmarking and the advanced reporting high-impact actions. And those can be completed fairly easily, and like I said, they would come at no cost to the community. So the process to becoming a clean energy community is to first review the NYSERDA guidance document. What actions has your town done? What actions would you like to do? You know, really looking at those low-hanging fruit and making sure you can get those 4 completed. You would complete the high-impact actions, submit your actions to NYSERDA, they become approved, and then you would apply for the grants after approval. There are 4 different grants that the town of Webster can go after that are available to them. First is the designation grant, and as I mentioned, that is just doing those 4 items that are listed in green that you can do pretty easily. Once you complete those, you would receive a one-time grant of $5,000. And then after you complete those, you can continue to accrue points and collect enough points to pass these point thresholds to become eligible for larger grant amounts. The first point threshold is 3,000 points. You would earn $30,000 as a large municipality. As you earn 4,000 points, you could receive $70,000, and then 5,000 points is $150,000. I would like to note that those grants are all match-free, and they also are first come, first serve, which is why in parentheses it lists the number of grants that are still remaining. And you are competing at the statewide level for those grants, but there's a lot of them still available. There's also the action grants. 2 of the high impact action items have additional grant funding associated with them. So if you were to pass the New York Stretch Energy Code, you could receive $50,000. There's 35 grants remaining for that. And there's also community campaigns. There's 4 different community campaigns you can complete, and you can receive $15,000 per campaign. There's also this disadvantaged community grant. In the town of Webster, there are several census tracts that are considered disadvantaged by NYSERDA. So any points-based or action grant award over $20,000 may be eligible for additional grant funding that you could receive as the town. Now, in completing these, when you receive these grants, all of the money needs to go to green energy-related activities. NYSERDA does have several, I want to say it's 5 or 6 kind of pre-packaged activities that you could complete. However, there is a very broad category of climate action that you could take as well, and you just need to meet 70% of the criterion that they have in the guidance document. So it is pretty open-ended on what you can complete using this grant funding, and I believe something like the project we're talking about would be perfect for this type of money. And again, this is match-free, and it's also first come, first serve. The funding is available until it runs out. There's still plenty of funding left, and we are fairly certain that there'll be another round of this in the future as well, seeing that this is the second round of this program. You also have 3 months from the date of your approval email from NYSERDA to start the grant and turn it into NYSERDA, and then you have 3 years to complete the project. So there is a little bit of time, and you can also get extensions for the project as well.
With that, one of the areas that Jamie has experience in is there's a lot of overlap, and I'll call it the crosswalk between Climate Smart and CEC. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can do that. Hi, everyone. So yes, one of the reasons I really like the Climate Smart Communities Program as well as the Clean Energy Communities Program is that it's kind of like an a la carte menu. You can kind of pick and choose what activities you would like to pursue in the municipality based on kind of what you're working on currently and where you can kind of leverage existing activities. And I really love that idea of kind of finding that double duty, so to say. You know, a lot of municipalities, right, you know, the capacity and resources and access to that is, you know, you're kind of cramped for that. And so leveraging those resources and finding where you already have that synergy and that work that has been accomplished and basically submitting for actions you've already have accomplished is one of the ways that, you know, we can work together as a team to find those kind of like low-hanging fruit and to find synergy in those programs. For example, this idea of a crosswalk. I've taken a look at the Climate Smart Communities Program, and the town of Webster is an MS4 community, and you're required to comply with that permit, and there's a lot of education and outreach and inventory and documentation that goes along with that program that you're required to do as a municipality. Well, you can slightly take some of those existing activities that you're already doing, repackage it, and submit it for the Climate Smart Communities Program. And so we've been able to kind of put together that crosswalk where you can find, again, that existing synergy in the programs and kind of use that momentum to apply to the program. So again, as a climate smart specialist, I'm also a town of Webster resident, so you have a climate action specialist in your community. So isn't that exciting? But you know, again, it's really kind of a great program to really explore and find ways to find funding and to cross pollinate your different existing programs. So yes, we definitely have a crosswalk that we're developing, and we'd be happy to work with your municipality on finding that momentum to move forward. So thank you for the opportunity.
So, I mean, those programs, up to 2 million through Climate Smart Community, and Jenny ran through the different thresholds. Again, I always say money brings money. When agencies start to look at your project and they put money towards it, it's gonna bring other monies to it. So these are all intertwined, and there's different levels. This Water Quality Improvement Program, or WQIP, is out right now. It's within the CFA portal. Changes this year is that it's strictly going to be looking at point scores issued to the applications by the DEC. The Regional Economic Development Commissions, or the REDCs, will not be adding their score to these projects. This one's one of the standalone grants, but there are several categories within the WQIP. The one most applicable to phase 2, of course, is the wastewater treatment plant improvement, up to $10 million, and it's a 40% grant max, up to 60% of award, or 60% local match. Again, what's important with this application and the score you would receive on it are the drivers, or what is it that this program prioritizes. So let's run through these. The project's going to improve water quality, for sure. You know, you're doing heavy improvements to your aeration. You're going to be looking at nutrient removal, ammonia reduction, so it certainly checks that box. The existing water quality of the receiving water body. Well, here's where you lose points, in that you're going to Lake Ontario. It's not a DEC impaired water body. It's a Class A drinking water source, recreation, so you're not going to score too heavy there. As Jenny just mentioned, there are some disadvantaged communities as identified under Climate Smart. However, there is one very small environmental justice community, I think up along the lakeshore over by the bay. But beyond that, you know, town of Webster's fairly affluent, your median household income's fairly high, your percent poverty is low, so that's not really a high point getter for you. The project environmental value for cost, again, you've got a fairly substantial discharge to Lake Ontario. Certainly if you can improve the water quality leaving your plant, there's some value there, long-term value to the environment. And then this last one, I think you're probably familiar with this. When you were awarded the WIA grant for phase 1 on the second attempt, I think a big part of that was the fact that you had designed it, you retained us to design it, you bid it, you awarded it, and you had the DEC involved through that whole process. And I think they basically said, hey, these guys are ready to go. They're in dire straits here. Their clarifiers have crapped out. And I think that's part of the reason. You showed the agency that you were investing in that project and you were moving ahead with it. And that's key. And that's a big part of shovel readiness. I think you're there now with phase 2 by virtue of the fact that you've done your seeker, you've done your PER, you've got this thing listed, you've done your seeker, you passed your bond resolution, you got a contractor on board, you continue moving forward with your design build, your shovel ready to move up pretty high in that regard, in our opinion. The GIGP, again, through the EFC, Environmental Facilities Corporation, they also offer the subsidized loan through the Clean Water SRF. There's 4 categories here. Traditionally, it's just been stormwater, but last year they opened it up with 3 more categories, one of which is energy efficiency at wastewater, water resource recovery facilities. And again, looking at the priorities, climate change mitigation, implementing GI practices to reduce effects of greenhouse gases, environmental justice was really looked at under last year's awards. integration of green stormwater into gray, not necessarily applicable here. Again, green stormwater infrastructure, regional focus on the environment, economy, and social benefits. Again, I think phase 2 touches that quite a bit in that you're looking to implement a regional project that would provide an outlet to other waste generators of sludge, septage, leachate, ultimately leading to heavy benefits to landfills and water quality. So again, I think it makes sense to pursue the energy efficiency grant under the GIGP. And then WIA, again, you would received a $3 million grant under WIA, which was 25% of the $12 million estimated for phase 1. You're familiar with that program. If all holds true, as I said, those applications would be due in November. There's a lot of money now that's available. They may beef up, the amount of money that's available through that program. And again, water quality improvements, financial need of the community, readiness to advance to construction, community support. So you're seeing, again, some of the common drivers here that you have and that you don't have. So it's the ones that you have that we really need to play up and tie together under all the various programs. So what do we do moving forward? Our suggestions, number one, this just came out yesterday. Are you interested in the bipartisan infrastructure law and how it can fund your community's water infrastructure projects? New York's going to receive $426 million in 2022 for water infrastructure from the bill. Learn how your community can apply for the funding. So that's on the 24th. We all know there's money coming, but we have no idea when, how, who. Our sense is it's going to be administered through established programs like EFC's CWSRF, DWSRF, USDA Rural Development, and so on, which your program has been marketed to, and in particular, as well as the DEC. So coming off of tonight's workshop, and looking forward to your town board meeting, certainly it's up to the board to review and discuss and consider the 10 elements that Jenny had reviewed for the Climate Smart Community. If that's a direction that you're going in, and from our perspective, some of the things you're doing now at your plant in particular, with your park space, your green space, and so on, I think fits the bill. But it's up to the board to pass the resolution, get the registration, and again, that opens up a new funding avenue for you. As I mentioned, we can assist with assembling and submitting the GIGP to Climate Smart Community should you do your resolution. That's under the CFA portal and the WQIP, and those are due at the end of July. And then we're all waiting anxiously for WIA. We may receive some good news on the 24th of May that the money's going to be out sooner. And not as important at this point, but again, clean energy community, if you want to marry that up with the Climate Smart movement, moving together, that may be advantageous as well for bringing some additional grants to your project. So with that, quite a lot to take in. Any questions for us tonight, or think about it, and we could certainly show up again at the town board meeting.
Let's not all clamor to jump in, but any questions here, comments from the board members?
Yeah, I'd like to get, if you could provide some examples of your CSC 10 element pledge, like building a climate smart community. Can you give me some examples of, these are bullet points, but some more detail,
Examples of
what you would do? Yeah.
what actions would count under
Correct.
each of those? Yes, absolutely. There are 140 or so different actions that fall under this program. And there's the 10 different elements. Some of the things are as easy as building a climate smart community task force. There's other things like installing LED streetlights. It runs this whole wide range of activities you can be doing. A lot of it is around education and outreach to your community. So any education outreach you might be doing currently could probably be wrapped into this program. Anything, if you've done looking at your fleet, doing a fleet inventory and possibly changing any of those into electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles. Looking at things like outdoor lighting, outdoor environmental protections and things like that. And it runs everything from zoning to streetlights in this program. Yeah, there's about 140 different actions that are available to a community to complete.
So think of it as structural and non-structural,
Yes.
right? You can have some hard costs and some of the softer ones. So some are building awareness in the community, as Jenny had mentioned, kind of building off of existing efforts that the town is already doing on education, on recycling, or that kind of work that you can marry into that program. And then some are more of the energy efficiency type of investments that have been made. Maybe it's stormwater management. It could be existing plans and initiatives, zoning updates. A lot of this you're probably already doing, and you just haven't compiled it in a centralized place. And as a matter of fact, we're going to be working with Rockland County on this very idea of taking a look at, we're doing work in the Climate Smart Communities program, we're doing stuff in the Clean Energy Communities program. They've actually filed a municipal resolution and they haven't done anything with it. So that goes to point that you can adopt the resolution and not necessarily submit for points, right? You're not required to. They're a really good example of that. But they're interested in moving forward and kind of putting together a framework for, where do we go from here? What do we need to do? And so, there are municipalities that are interested in kind of moving that forward and figuring out how to tie it into a lot of their existing program and leveraging that momentum. So that's something that we're seeing a lot happening across New York State.
Do you have those 140 different, is that something that you could forward?
Absolutely.
Because I'd like to take a
Yes.
deeper look into what those examples are.
Absolutely. And then also all of the clean energy communities, high impact action items count towards Climate Smart. So there's that crosswalk where these two programs overlap and how to utilize both programs as best as you can. So
Sure, any
everything you do in
additional
there-
information you could provide, I'd appreciate it.
I'd also recommend, this is a snapshot from the website, was it Climate? If you just Google Climate Smart Communities, this is a great platform to kind of experiment and look and check into each of the different, the pledge elements, and it'll give you a listing and examples
Oh,
of
perfect.
communities that have submitted for points. So definitely utilize that website. It's probably one of the best ones I've ever used.
Absolutely. Yeah, the website does share exactly what you would need to submit for points, and it's very comprehensive. And like you said, probably one of the better websites out there.
So can I parlay on to Councilman Cahill's questions on the Climate Smart Communities grant potential? First, it's a maximum grant award of $2 million.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, Jenny, did you say that you don't have to be a climate smart community to get it, but the reality is you put yourself in a lot better position to be awarded?
Correct,
Is that-
correct. You receive extra points on your application for being registered, and then also additional points for being either silver or bronze certified.
Okay.
Can-
And then if we, just round numbers, let's say we got awarded $1 million. And it's a 50% local match, well, that means that we have to come up with $1 million, but within this $31 million project, that's kind of a slam dunk,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then the other question I have is, parlaying off of what Councilman Cahill said, I wrote down that there's 380 communities in New York that have gotten this climate smart community designation. Their town boards or village, whatever, did the resolution, whatever. 80 are bronze, 8 are silver. So 88 have moved from just registering to moving up the chain of doing things on this. So that leaves still about 300 of those communities that haven't moved up the chain. Is there, if you don't move up the chain and show that you are doing stuff, do you lose that designation?
No, nope. As long as you are registered, you will always be on this map and you will always have that registration designation. Once you become bronze or silver certified, you do need to redesignate every 5 years. I think every 5 years, but it's really just resubmitting the paperwork, and if you've done anything additional, you can kind of add on to your points. So
Sure.
if you were bronze, you can then become silver if you have additional points. And I think at some point there will be a gold standard as well. They're still looking into that.
Okay. I mean, not to be a cynic, but, but I guess part of my question is that, okay, I see the majority of people, a majority of municipalities haven't moved up to bronze or whatever. But there's no punitive aspect that all of a sudden we got awarded $1 million or $1.5 million or $2 million on whatever. And they're like, well, if you don't get to silver within a year, you lose that money.
Nope.
Okay. That's all I have on that one. Ginny?
What would the fee be for you guys to do all this? Was it included all with the project?
I couldn't hear you.
Fee, she's asking if there's, what the fee would be.
Partnering with BNL to assist with this, and that's probably something you can look into and get back to me on.
I would. I mean, we're basically here on behalf of Navitas. We had the strategy meeting, Zoom there a week or so ago, week and a half. So, yeah, that's something we would have to work out with them unless you, retained us separately from that project.
Bill or Patty?
Those who are certified at bronze and silver obviously have accumulated more points for the actions that they have done. Does that affect the amount of grant funding that you might receive? Does that move you higher up on the possibility?
I don't know if you are definitely more likely to get a CFA grant if you are bronze or silver certified, but I don't know the answer to whether or not you would get 2 million instead of 1 million. That is something I can look into though.
You would increase the opportunity for those grants.
Yes.
I'd be very interested in the cost for you to assist the town to acquire this certification. That would be key in what we do, or whether we would move forward.
That's what you need.
So I'm just saying I'd be interested in that as well.
But are you saying that there's a possibility it could be within the Navitas? Actions?
We don't know.
Oh, I'm
that,
asking
so-
Ken or Art.
I think that's something we'd have to work out, whether we'd want to roll it into that or retain BNL separately. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, town could still take the resolution for the original 10 pledge and get us at least registered,
Right.
and then look deeper into that.
Yeah. As the supervisor introed this, the primary focus would be, the food waste and organic processing, the goal of, the benefits of greenhouse gas reduction under your Phase 2 project. So, that would be the immediate charge, which we would work with Navitas on. The secondary benefit moving forward would be, okay, as Jamie mentioned, the town may have already done things that will fall under the 10 element pledge categories that could already be bringing you points. And then there's you may have other capital projects that fall into this, sidewalks, anything that promotes connectivity, walkability, that's going to reduce vehicle trips and therefore greenhouse gases would be eligible. This is a whole litany of the types of projects that the Climate Smart grant will fund.
So when you mention things like sidewalks, can that be something that's already been completed, or does it have to be additional planning for?
Already completed. I believe the Climate Smart Communities has about a 10-year look back.
Okay.
So really anything you've done in the last 10 years. The Clean Energy Communities program, that look back is much shorter. NYSERD has had a little bit more wiggle room recently, but they tend to be a little stricter with their look back.
And that's for points
Yes,
versus grant money.
correct.
And there was also opportunities too, if the town has participated on county kind of projects. And what comes to mind is the countywide hazard mitigation plan. There's a climate component, and I think the county is beginning that process. I'm not entirely sure. But, there are those types of opportunities too, where the county is kind of working on a project and the municipality is a partnering jurisdiction. And there's other opportunities, again, to kind of leverage that.
Right. I got two last things. One is that, I don't want to call it the 800-pound gorilla in the room, but branding's a funny thing. The two grants, Climate Smart and Green Energy, in our society today, one faction of people is like, I love it, I love it, I love it, I don't need to know the details. And another faction is like, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I don't want to know the details. That's just a reality. I wish they were branded differently, but they are what they are, okay? There's my 800-pound gorilla counselor, right? Second thing to that, as long as Charlie is here. Charlie, what's the old saying? You don't ask a question in court you don't know the answer to? Well, I'm going to take a derivation of that, a little risk here. I'd like to ask the panel over there, I'm going to say this in about 30 seconds or less, and tell me if it's accurate or not. A couple years ago, the town of Webster, through really necessity, did a $12 million Phase 1 asset replenishment project. Because of the essence of being an asset replenishment project, Phase 1 really was only realistically eligible for the WIA grant, of which, once we got more shovel ready, we got the grant on our second try because we were further along in 60% drawings, 90% contracts, all that. Now the town rolls into Phase 2 of their sewer plant, which is $31 million. It started as $20 million, which was strictly going to be asset replenishment again. But through a series of things the last couple of years, we've added $11 million of innovative, revenue-producing, cost-saving aspects to it. That is why you're here tonight showing us other grants besides the WIA grant. Is it because we are doing something other than an asset replenishment project, like was Phase 1, like the Village of Webster is doing, so they're really only eligible on theirs for WIA or hardship? These grants that you're showing us are more because of the revenue production and cost savings and all the aspects of that $11 million additional innovation. That you called it a regional plant, Ken. That term was used a year ago in a different way. This is the town's sewer plant, but it has regional effect because there will be people or other sewer plants that will want to bring their sludge here to get dried with this innovation. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
So a regional plan, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
It
Regional
will affect and bring value to the whole region, but it's not a regional plan, it's the town of Webster's sewer. Okay, that was more than 30 seconds, wasn't it, Patty?
Yes, it was.
How much was accurate and where was I wrong?
Can you give us 5 minutes? I believe everything you said, Tom, is accurate, and I come back to this slide right here where you're looking to increase your odds and opportunities for funding, and that's done through co-funding. And to get funding, you need to write creatively. You need to basically write an application that caters to the programs, and these programs are now they're available, they're on the list because of the types of things you are proposing to do at your plant.
Yep.
That was not the case with Phase 1. It was strictly a gray, we gotta do this
Right.
to fix a piece of our plant that's broken. This is further reaching than that and pulls in more drivers.
The last thing I'll say, and it'll take only 5 seconds, Patty. 10 minutes. You can go back in the town board minutes from when we did the bonding for this $31 million project, and we said we are going to do everything in our power to maximize the aggregate grants so that we're not indebting this municipality by $31 million in bonds. That I can assure you was said. Those are words. This is starting the execution of those words. and as town board, and we need to look seriously at all of this so that we can try to get as much of that $31 million project done through grants instead of bonding and debt servicing to the community. And that's all I got.
Can I assume that we're going to have someone register for this webinar on the 24th?
We have multiple people in it, including our water resources team that's working on
Okay.
your project, so, yeah.
From a town perspective, should we have someone in on it?
I usually sit on those as well as Denise.
Fantastic, because they said there's 426 million for New York State alone. I mean, we just want a small portion of that, right?
Can I ask the board's feelings on moving forward with the resolution for the Climate Smart Pledge?
Well, I'm gonna go to the website and do some more,
Yeah.
Discuss that, or we can't
reading
consider-
before I
Then
come to
that's
an
fine.
answer on that.
Yeah.
There's
I agree
a
with
model
everything
resolution
you
on
guys
the
said.
website, so,
Oh, there's.
yes, yeah, you don't have to start the resolution from scratch, it is on the, there's one on the website you can use.
Yeah.
So we'll do our homework and look into it more and
Right.
make an educated
Yeah.
decision.
And can I just ask, I would love to get your card, nothing personal, today, but she lives in Webster,
Yeah.
and she's an expert at this. You know that I've been trying for a year and a half to get an ad hoc citizen committee together to look at different energy things.
Uh-oh.
And I'm not, you know, I'm just saying,
Tonight, you're,
you know, all these people reach out to me that are, you know,
This is
almost like
community
zealot,
service.
like, gotta do this, got energy, and I'm like, great, help me, let's form this, I'm busy. You know, so I'm not asking you to chair it or anything, but, you know, I can't get anybody to volunteer for this thing, Charlie.
I was gonna say, you may
All
rue the
right.
day that you mentioned
Yeah.
that.
I'm just saying, you live here,
I do,
all
I
right?
do, and I love it. I
We
love
have
it
good
here,
coffee
so-
at the town hall.
And you know, to respond to what you said about, you know, kind of how polarizing some of those words can be, climate action and, you know, green, you know, I think, and I totally understand that, and I agree 100%. And I speak a lot in communities about that. Sometimes it's extreme weather, right? We can all observe different types of events in our environment that we haven't seen in a long time, that are happening more frequently with greater intensity. Sometimes I phrase it that way, but at the end of the day, I always come back to, you know, what can make our communities safer, healthier, and more inclusive, and that's kind of how I kind of talk about it in that way, so.
I'm not asking you to commit to any volunteering.
it's
or
okay.
whatever, but I would love to,
Yeah, no pressure there at all.
none at all.
Not at all.
Hey,
Probably wish you stayed home now, don't you?
No, I would be happy to.
Probably wish you didn't admit to living.
Do not give him your card.
thank you. Well, Josh, you gonna follow that? Will you be, our last item tonight,
Yep, thank you.
which was slotted for 6:15, but we'll start approximately at 6:38, which is fine, because I think that one that we just heard needed that time. Our Director of Community Development, Josh Artuzo, is here to present to the town board on potential options for a comprehensive plan update in Webster. And I get the feeling, Josh, that some of what was just presented by the Barton LaJudas folks might tie into this in a way. And this is what Mike and Chuck from the Conservation Board are here tonight for, correct? Did you get a nice bonus from the Barton LaJudas presentation? I love it. Josh? Thank you, gang.
Thank you.
The floor is yours, Josh.
Thank you. Just bear with me one sec while I pull up the presentation. Okay. So I'm just going to go through a brief overview of what will be covered in this presentation. So first I want to talk a little bit about, you know, what is a comprehensive plan and why do we need one? Then I'm going to touch upon a brief history of comprehensive planning in the town of Webster, just to present some resources that will be required for this effort, and then present some options and next steps for the town board to consider. So what is a comprehensive plan? It expresses a community's long-term vision, goals, and objectives. It establishes policies and strategies for future growth, development, and protection of community assets. It informs land use regulations and local decision-making. It helps prioritize capital investments and infrastructure projects. And it functions as the basis for updating of the town's zoning ordinance and the official zoning map. And as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen is a graphic representation with several aspects that are included in a comprehensive plan. A capital improvement plan, as I mentioned, zoning code and ordinances, community vision. There's really a huge public engagement effort associated with comprehensive planning, long and short-term goals, and prioritization of infrastructure improvements. So in the center of that, you have people, and those represent, a community-based effort that engages all residents. So what are some of the components in a comprehensive plan? You basically take a look at the population demographics. What is the age distribution of our population? You look at the housing types, economic demographics, transportation, infrastructure, land use, culture and recreation, sustainable practices, and then protection of environmental resources. So you collect information of all of those categories, and you basically analyze, identify trends. As I mentioned before, there's a fairly large public engagement component to the process. Once you've collected the data and presented the trends, you get feedback from the public, and that helps you develop what the vision, goals, and strategies contained in the plan would be. And those ultimately translate to land use recommendations. What are appropriate land uses and where should they be located? And ultimately that informs the updating of the zoning code, because the zoning code is essentially the implementation tool for the comprehensive plan. So I just want to go over some benefits of having an up-to-date comprehensive plan. It provides municipal officials with an in-depth understanding of historical trends, what the present conditions are, and it gives us an opportunity to thoughtfully plan for future growth. It provides for a balanced economic and community development strategy that is based on the community's physical, environmental, and social conditions. It provides guidance for public and private sector investments, and it helps attract grant funding opportunities for project implementation. So just going to the left side here, this is an excerpt that was taken out of New York State Town Law, Section 272A, and it states that among the most important powers and duties granted by the legislature to a town government is the authority and responsibility to undertake town comprehensive planning and to regulate land use for the purpose of protecting the public health, safety, and general welfare of its citizens. So essentially, if your municipality administers a zoning code, it's actually required by law that you have a comprehensive plan in place. So now I'm just going to go over a relatively brief history of comprehensive planning over the past 30 years in town. I'm sure there were previous efforts, but this is what I had readily available and accessible at Town Hall. Back in 1991, it was referred to as a growth management plan, and it was adopted by the town board at the time in March of '91. The town developed a 2000 comprehensive plan approximately 22 years ago. That plan was updated last in 2008. So as you could see, over the past 3 decades or so, the town has embarked on a comprehensive plan update roughly every 8 or 9 years. So now we're in 2022. It's been about 14 years since the town last updated its comprehensive plan, which is part of the reason why I'm here tonight giving this presentation. So obviously, it is a very wide-reaching effort, so it does require resources. So what we would need at this point in time for a comprehensive plan update would be some dedicated funding for either consultant services to assist us or to hire additional planning staff. That resource would basically assist us with the data collection and analysis task, the public engagement assistance, holding of focus group meetings, citizen stakeholder committees. We would look to engage pretty much every facet of our community, from students that are enrolled in the Webster Central School District to having outreach events at some of the local senior living centers. So we would really want a very robust public engagement process, and we would look for some assistance with that. And then ultimately preparation of the final plan document in a format that's easily digestible, easy to read, graphically interesting. We'd also like to take advantage of some things that may not have been available the last time around with technology. Developing a dedicated project web page and some interactive mapping and survey software that would help us expand our outreach efforts, making it really convenient for people to give feedback and participate in surveys, using their mobile devices, tablets, etc. So the typical timeline and cost for an effort such as this really is broken down into 2 parts. First, you have the comprehensive plan development process, and that on average can take anywhere between 18 and 24 months. An estimated cost of that effort obviously would vary depending on which direction the town board chooses to go, but we have reached out to other municipalities that have recently gone through this process, and they had allocated and spent right around that amount, and they were able to accomplish that slightly under that number. And then the next logical step, once that effort is complete, we would need to undertake zoning code revisions to align our code with the plan that ultimately gets adopted. And that effort typically takes on average anywhere from a year to a year and a half. And again, if we were to seek some outside support with consultant services, the estimated cost of that effort would be around $50,000. So I have identified a couple potential funding sources for the town board to consider. As was previously mentioned in the last presentation, the New York State Consolidated Funding Application portal has opened officially. This is the grant opportunity that we applied for last year, and unfortunately were not successful in achieving. However, I will say they have actually doubled the amount of funding available this year. Last year, there was $1 million allocated for this program. It was the first year that this program was available to communities in New York State. It's called the Smart Growth Community Planning and Zoning Program. And I think it would actually dovetail pretty nicely with what was presented in the previous presentation on climate smart communities. The portal has opened. Applications are due by the end of July. So that is an opportunity that we could consider pursuing again. The announcements for the awards, however, aren't typically made until the end of the year in December. So I suggest that we pursue and go ahead and resubmit an application for this. Because if we do happen to get awarded, that would be an extra bonus. Another potential option for funding, as was presented at a few previous workshops and town board meetings, are the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act. I believe comprehensive planning is an eligible activity under the general government services category. And another alternative would be to just budget for it over the course of 2 budget cycles in the 23 and 24 town budgets. So in terms of next steps, I recommend that we continue to evaluate the implementation status of the existing 2008 comprehensive plan recommendations. I know the supervisor has engaged with several town staff, board members, and others that have been involved in town government for quite some time, and they've begun analyzing the recommendations and either indicating, yes, we pursued this and, we completed it, or, no, that recommendation never really got off the ground, and here's why. So I think that as we embark on this new effort, it's important to revisit where we were and, what was accomplished and what was intended to be accomplished, and maybe some of the reasons why some weren't. So I recommend that we continue with that process. And then we can obviously identify and secure funding sources for the plan update. We would then develop a scope of work. If the town board did choose to go with consultant services, we would obviously need to develop the scope of work of what we would expect them to do. And then we would potentially go out for requests for proposals to the various planning and engineering consulting firms. These are things that we can, continue working on through the remainder of 2022. In addition, we could start to think about forming advisory committees, either based on topic areas or other areas of interest. And then we would seek to actually kick off the project in early 2023, assuming the funding was identified and the town board, decides that this is something that should be pursued. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions you might have. And
Well, I know we've had several discussions regarding updating the comprehensive plan, so thanks for the presentation, and I agree. I think that we should move ahead, and there are funds available, as you did state, ARPA funds. That was one of the options that we had looked at, but I'd like to move forward with this.
Josh, you mentioned that last year there was $1 million in that pot of money for the CFA grant, and it was more this year. Do you know what it is?
yes, they actually doubled it, so there's $2
Two.
million available this year. And I want to add that, I did participate in a debriefing effort with some of the folks from the state that were responsible for grading all of the applications. So I do have a lot of insights on what they suggested through that effort, on what could improve our chances for the next time around. And obviously, more funding available increases our chances as well. They did indicate that there was overwhelming interest from across the state, as this was the first year that something like this was actually available for comprehensive planning. And it is tied to smart growth, climate awareness, resiliency, sustainability, all of the popular terms that we hear quite frequently.
Buzzwords.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
There you go.
Well, and certainly this is something we need to consider undertaking. I think probably Councilman Abbott can speak to the labor-intensive
There's a happy medium.
effort that this takes, because you were on one of the comprehensive plan
I
committees.
was on
weren't
two
you?
of them.
Two of them. I guess you're not going to be on the
I
third?
won't be on the third one. I'm sorry.
Come on, Bill.
I'm sorry.
Third
Did you
time's a
get-
charm.
Did you get stuck on those because you were one of the newest council members?
No.
Oh,
no.
okay.
It was,
It's your engineering background.
it is a very time-consuming task to complete it in 2 years. If you get it done in 2 years, I'll be amazed. But, there's just so much information that has to be processed. And if you don't, you definitely need a consultant to help you go through it all and tie it all together. It can't be done in-house. You need an engineering firm to help.
Yeah.
It's funny, oh, I was gonna say, Josh, you've gone to more of them than I have, but I've gone to some of the county is going through this with, what do they call it, Fast Forward or something like that?
Plan forward.
Plan Forward, all right. And that's their comprehensive plan update. They haven't done it since 79 or 80, I guess.
It's been quite a while.
And I went to a meeting or two with you on this because I wanted to take notes. Really, yeah, I'm interested in what's going on in Monroe County, but I was taking notes to kind of see what can we glean for if we come to Webster and do this. So that's been an interesting, for me, to go to those meetings to see, what I thought was pretty cool and that makes sense, and what I was like,
Yeah. Yeah, the county's effort is a little bit different in that they don't have control over the individual municipalities' land use maps.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're looking at higher level, broad initiatives that affect all of the municipalities in the county. And it has been a pleasure to be a part of that.
Charlie, I don't want to put you on the spot. Is this something like that the board would have to do a resolution at some point to say, we're off and we're going to do this? Or is it,
I think it's probably, well,
If you're gonna
to the
spend
extent
money.
that you would be forming committees and seeking funding and things like that, I think that would be the kind of resolution that you would do. I think the board could certainly state that the intention is to go ahead with the plan. I don't know that you have to do a resolution
don't know
per se.
that. Well, I know we're going to have it because Councilman Cahill said he's for it, so that's kind of, that's it, right? Jenny, any,
No, thanks, Josh.
what's that?
Yeah, we need it. We need a new comprehensive plan.
Yeah. I will say, and Bill, can't, third time's a charm. You won't go with that, huh? Is it,
Tom, if you realize what the second time was like, that would be enough for you to say,
I've
I
heard
wouldn't want
stories.
any part of a third one.
I've heard stories. Now, and I'm naivete, but the technology piece that you said, that may be a big difference between how things went down in 05, 06, and 07 to 2022. I don't know, but there's something about that that makes me think it might be easier to accumulate data. I don't know. We'll
Well,
see.
I also think it's good that we've done some legwork on looking back at the last one, as you said, and what was implemented and what wasn't, and why it wasn't. Because sometimes the desires that come out in a comprehensive plan can be kind of, pie in the sky sort of
Yeah.
thoughts, where it really doesn't have a practical application. So hopefully some of that's already been looked at, and we won't repeat that again, and
Right.
be able to move forward without looking back too much.
Josh, is there a reason why Matt wasn't here tonight, sit next to you or anything? Did he have a previous commitment or something?
Yes, unfortunately, he had a family commitment
Okay.
that came up. He did
'Cause-
call me, and he wanted to be here this evening, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it.
Yeah. And I just want everybody to know that because Matt Chatfield, who's the executive director of WIDA, and Josh have kind of been working on this together. Josh, you've done the majority, obviously. But both of you have a planning background that I don't know if anybody in town government had when they did the 91, the 2000, and 2008. Bill, you have definitely have the engineering background. But you guys have a planning background that maybe gives some perspective to this, that we've just never had that skill set, I think, before at the town level or access to it.
Matt was on the last committee.
Well, then we had access to it. All right.
Yeah, I think maybe the most major difference, and I wasn't involved in the 2008 initiative, but from my understanding, it wasn't until late in the process that the town engaged with a consulting firm. And I think we would look to do that up front, I think, this time around. And that may also make a difference.
And that was Councilman Abbott's recommendation, so lesson learned, I assume, from the last one.
So, Bill, is it true that we got the consultant later on in the process after you were?
On the second plan, yes.
So, like, if we did it early, that third time's a charm. Okay.
You better drop it.
Anyway, any other comments or questions on this?
No.
All right, offline, I guess. I just want to make sure that we go about it the
Yeah.
right legal way. I just,
I'll
I don't know if there's a
I'll do some
resolution or whatever
further
to
checking.
start
Yeah,
it,
I'll be glad to do that. Again, I think the point of resolutions is to set policy and basically legislate. And the question is, what are you gonna legislate? So if you're gonna form committees, you're going to be funding, obviously those would be things for resolutions. And that would indicate that you're following through, you're gonna be,
sure.
so.
And then Dolly, I might ask you the last one was done, probably started, Bill, in 05, 06.
06.
Okay, so there might be in the town board minutes, like, how did the board start the process? Through a so instead of us recreating the wheel, but.
Well, and I think Bill's comment is well taken, because I think the fact is that the 2000 one was actually the most radical, I think, because the town was certainly in major flux, and they created new districts and new names for districts, and they really changed the town. That was the big one. 2008 was a follow-up, and Bill, you were on both of those, correct?
Yes.
And I think the thing is, like Bill says, get somebody ahead of, no, really, you get somebody ahead of it, ahead of the game, and then maybe that's what you do. The first thing you do is to hire a consultant, decide that you're going to start planning for it, get a consultant, and do that.
Well, I'll pursue
Yeah,
talk offline.
sure, we can
that,
talk,
because
sure.
The one feeling I'm getting from this, and I don't want to assume anything, is that the town board seems to have an appetite that we need to venture into this.
Yes.
I think this would be wisely spent money from the ARPA funds. But certainly along with that, we will pursue whatever grants, like we always do, that can come to our community
Yeah.
to offset that, because there's a lot of ways we could be spending ARPA money. There's a lot of needs.
Anything else?
Are you going around the table?
No.
Or
that's
just
a
on this
regular-
topic?
I think if that's it, then we're done.
I just-
Oh,
I would like to announce something, because next week is National EMS Week. A lot of activities taking place at Nikhil's and Webb's new facility on 1030 Jackson Road. They have Music of the Stars on Saturday. On May 15th, they have EMS Open House, Community Health Fair from 12 to 4. And on May 16th, from 7 to 8:30, there's Narcan training. On May 17th, and this is very, very important training, from 6 to 8, they have what's known as stroke recognition training. And then on the 18th, they have community CPR training, and that's from 7 to 9. And on May 19th, from 6 to 8 p.m., they have Stop to Bleed training. So some very, very important training going on at their new facility next week. And if you have an opportunity to take advantage of it, please do.
Yeah. Well, then, Jenny, go ahead.
Oh, could I just add on? I'm sorry. Thanks for reminding me. The Webster Public Library is having their book sales, so please come down and support our public library, and also please support our public museum too as well. You know, take your children, come and see what they have in there. It's wonderful.
It is a nice museum, it really is.
So please come join us. Thank you.
Bill, Patty?
I visited a sludge dryer this week.
That is true.
It was a great trip. It was, you know, this is something we've looked at and part of the 11 million that we've added on for revenue and better environment. One of the really interesting things was as soon as we pulled in, we went down to Endicott, which serves Endicott and Vestal and a few other communities. The first thing we saw when we pulled into the driveway was a great big pile of this Class A biosolid that can be used for fertilizer. And it's just sitting out there in the yard, and there were two people shoveling it into their pickup truck to use as fertilizer for their garden, I assume. But it, as I said, it's Class A biosafe, so it can be used for that, and it was just great to see it going back to the community. So it was an interesting trip.
You didn't take any videos, did you?
I took some photos,
Yeah, I'd love to see them.
yes.
Well, I don't have an announcement that is like you guys. I have one, though, that will, it's not so much for the community, but for the town board. I think it'll make them very happy. I will not be here next week. Patty will be running the town board meeting as deputy supervisor, so
Getting out early that night.
I knew that would bring a smile to all your faces. Bill, if you want to do an Irish jig, go right ahead.
And we might as well add and tag on to John's that at that meeting next Thursday, we will be doing a recognition of our local
Proclamation.
EMS, yes.
Local EMS. They do a lot for our community, that's for sure.
Dolly? All right, well, guess what?
All right, good night.
Mike and Chuck, thanks for coming.